Today we're going to take a look at Lesson 11. The objective says, multiply a decimal fraction by single-digit whole numbers, relate to a written method through application of the area model and place value understanding, and explain the reasoning needed. Let's take a look at number 1. Solve by drawing discs on a place value chart. Write an equation and express the product in standard form. Letter A says 4 copies of 2/10. Let's get started by first creating a place value chart. Our place value chart has a ones place, the decimal, and a tenths place. For this question it says 4 copies of 2/10, so we're now going to draw 2 dots in the tenths column. The 2/10 listed represent 1 copy. If these 2 dots represent 1 copy, we can continue making 2 dots at a time until we get to a total of 4 copies. I'll illustrate this on the place value chart below. I have circled all 4 of the copies, each having 2/10 inside of them. Count the total number of tenths at this time. There's a total of 8/10. Now, let's express this product in standard form. The problem is now set up. We have 2/10 times 4. Let's start by multiplying 4 times 2. 4 times 2 is 8. Now we multiply 4 times 0. 4 times 0 is 0. The last step to finishing this problem is to insert the decimal where it belongs. In 2/10 there is 1 number behind the decimal. So our answer also has to have 1 number behind the decimal. I'll insert a decimal point between the 0 and the 8. In both scenarios, I get an answer of 8/10. Question 1b says 2 groups of 3/100. Let's start by writing our place value chart. The problem says we have 2 groups of 3/100. Let's start by adding 3 discs under the hundredths place. This group of 3 represents 1 of the 2 groups. By adding 3 more discs in the hundredths place, we have now created 2 groups of 3/100. With the 2 groups listed, we can now count how many total hundredths there are. By counting, there are a total of 6 hundredths. Let's do the problem in standard form to the right to make sure we have the right answer. With the problem set up, we can now solve. We'll start by multiplying 2 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Next we'll multiply 2 times 0. 2 times 0 is 0. Last we need to add a decimal point. In the problem there are 2 numbers behind the decimal. Our answer also must have 2 numbers behind the decimal, so let's insert our decimal point now with 2 numbers behind the decimal. This gives us an answer of 6 hundredths, which matches up our place value chart. Let's move on to question number 2. Number 2 says, find the sum of the partial products to evaluate each expression. The question says 4 times 2 and 14 hundredths. If you take a look here, they have a little bit of a table for you. And inside the table, it says 4 times 2 ones, 4 times 1/10, and 4 times 4 hundredths. The first 4, of course, represents the 4 that you're going to be multiplying by the decimal. Then they broke down each number. The 2 is in the ones place, the 1 is in the tenths place, and the 4 is in the hundredths place. Now we need to actually go through and multiply each part. Let's start with 4 times 2 ones. 4 times 2 is 8. So I'll fill in an 8 right now. Now I need to write the unit after it. It says 1, so I'll write 8 ones. Underneath this is a blank line. How do I represent 8 ones as a whole number? Simply 8 ones equals 8. The next box says 4 times 1/10. 4 times 1 is 4, and the unit is the tenths place, so I'll write 4/10. 4/10 as a decimal would be 0.4. That leaves us with 4 times 4 hundredths. 4 times 4 is 16, so I will now write 16 hundredths. This has already been written as a decimal below for us. Now we need to line up our decimals and add those three numbers on the lines. Let's start over in the hundredths place. We have a 6 and 2 blank spots. 6 plus nothing would be 6. Next to it in the tenths column we have 4 and a 1. 4 plus 1 is 5. Now you need to bring down your decimal place. And last, you need to add 8 plus 0, which would be 8. So the answer to 4 times 2 and 14 hundredths would be 8 and 56 hundredths, which I'll write on the line right now. Let's move on to question number 3. Question number 3 says, Fred incorrectly gave the product of 5 times 3 and 3/10 as 15 and 15 hundredths. Use a place value chart or an area model to help Fred understand his mistake. Let's use the area model to help us solve. An area model has now been created. 3 and 3/10 has been broken down to 3 ones and 3/10, and it's being multiplied by 5. Inside the first box it says 5 times 3 ones. 5 times 3 would be 15, and then we would also label it ones. 15 ones would be represented as 15. In the next box we have 5 times 3/10. 5 times 3 would be 15 tenths. Now, how would you write 15 tenths? 15 tenths would actually be written out as 1.5. You can only have one digit in the tenths place, so the 1 would move over to the ones place. Now let's solve. 15 plus 1.5 would give us 5 in the tenths column. Bring down your decimal. 5 plus 1 is 6. 1 plus nothing is 1. It would give us a total of 16.5. By using the area model, we have helped show Fred his mistake. Now you know how to multiply a decimal fraction by a single-digit whole number for our next class.